Hello guys, and welcome back to another body language analysis video. In this one we're going to revisit Tommy Shelby, which I know a lot of you are happy about. It's going to be part 2. It's actually quite hard to find good scenes for Peaky Blinders Tommy Shelby body language. Luckily I found this one and another one that I'm going to put in here. So enjoy guys, it's going to be 2 clips back to back. The first one is going to be with Grace, and the second one is going to be when he's in a group of men, to kind of show the differences between body language with a woman and body language with a group of men.
Arthur tells me you've been asking questions about how we run our business.
So first off, not really body language, but just a little tip. He hasn't even said hello, he's just gone straight in with a question because he's getting straight to the point. That's very masculine.
And how we get our booze and where we keep it.
I'm just trying to help.
Let's you and me go for a walk.
So again, the way he's taken that short pause, we can see here, let's go back, watch this short pause, and then he moves on and still decides what he's going to do anyway.
Let's you and me go for a walk.
So it's very commanding. He's, like I said, he's deciding what he wants to do anyway. He's a thinking man, Tommy Shelby. It's very good to see. But that little pause for 2-3 seconds, it has such a dramatic effect.
Where to?
Come on.
And as always with Tommy, we can see that, you know, the woman is following him. Wherever he leads, they follow. He kind of does this thing where he just takes off. He just takes off in a certain direction and he just expects people to follow. And guess what? They usually do. We can see here, this is another leader's move. So obviously he's come through the door first. He's held the door open for her. And you'd usually do this if you own the place. You know, if it was your house or your office or something like that. If somebody's coming in, you'd hold the door open. You'd go in first, you'd hold the door open. You kind of welcome them in. And even though they're going into a mutual ground, which is the church, you know, it's kind of, this is my place. You're taking ownership on the place by taking ownership of the entry, if that makes sense, guys. You know, the fact that he's walked off and she's followed him, then he's opened the door, she's come in. It kind of gives a headmaster and student kind of dynamic, or a boss and a employee dynamic. It's very clever the way he's done this.
Why here?
You're a good Catholic girl, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, then you know it's here people come to confess. After you.
And there we see it again. He's doing the same thing. He's saying after you. So, you know, he sets up these leads. So if you want, I know it's a series, guys. You know, I know it's not real, but like I've always said to you guys, the people who work on these shows, they set these things up on purpose because that's what makes it believable. And Tommy Shelby's kind of authority and people doing what he says, it doesn't happen by accident. You know, it doesn't happen because he asks. It happens because he sets these things up with small little notions or habits that he does along the way. For example, leading her away at the start when he's walking, opening the door and allowing her to come in, you know, and then saying after you and making her sit on the inside so that she can't escape easily. You know, it's a very powerful move. In terms of, let's say, seating arrangement when it comes to body language, she is sat on that inside chair. He's sat on the outside, so her exit is pretty much blocked. It's another power move from Tommy. So I think this is quite important here. I think the fact that her hands are kind of clasped together in the middle and her fingers were kind of waving or tapping up and down, that shows nervousness. You know, she's wondering what's going to happen next.
Well, here it is, Grace. I'll confess.
Something there that I haven't showed you guys before is micro expressions. I don't know whether she's done this on purpose or whether this is a form of acting, but you just watch. If we just take this forward a slight bit, just watch this area here. This is what you call a micro expression. A lot of people do these accidentally, and we don't know that we're doing it, and it gives away so much. So watch this. There. Did you guys see that? Let's take it back again. Hopefully this stays in place, but it's this kind of area here.
I'll confess.
There, the way it's moving. Okay, so what we had here is this lip came out and we had slight movement around about here. Now, this is to express nervousness. This is, like I said, a micro expression. It's uncontrollable for a lot of people. You know, when somebody's lip trembles when they're nervous, that's exactly what this is. And these expressions, they seem to take place, eyebrows especially, you know, your eyes sometimes if they dart off to the sides. You can get nostrils flaring, which is another big one. And one that is very common is obviously lips. So just lips in general, they just move enormously. And one that we can't see here, but a lot of people don't take note of is your feet. And it's because your feet are the furthest away from your brain, which means that they're the least easiest to control, if you could say it like that. And we're less aware of what's going on down there. And sometimes you'll feel that your feet are pattering away and you didn't realize you were even doing it, you know, and it's because it's furthest away from the brain, it's the hardest to control. So if you ever want to see if somebody's lying or nervous, etc., you can really see if they're faking their body language based on what they're doing with their feet.
Yes. I need someone. Kimber has an advisor by the name of Roberts. He talks well. Keeps the account.
You see how many micro expressions there were there, guys? There's another one with the lip at the end. I'll see if we can just catch it.
Keeps
there.
the accounts.
See if we can get that again. Just watch this, guys.
He talks well. Keeps the accounts. Runs the legal side of the business.
And the fact here, Tommy's talking, but he's not looking at her. He's actually making an effort to look in the complete opposite direction. And we've seen from the camera angle a couple of times she's looked at him. So what he's done there is he's able to garner that attention. He's got her eyes on him. And this is what he does. Like I said at the start, when he walks away from her and he leads, he says, come on, you know, no other words needed, come on. Then he goes through the door, he holds it open, he directs her into the building. He tells her where to sit, tells her to go on the inside. You know, and then he sits on the outside and he looks the opposite direction. It's all these miniature moves that he does, which makes people gravitate towards him and want his attention. That's why when he says to do something, so many people are willing to do it. Fantastic setup work.
And you need a Robert.
Arthur tells me you have ideas.
So he looked at her for a couple of seconds there in the eyes and he's away again. So it's just very hard to get this man's attention.
Not an accountant nor a lawyer.
No. No, but you have something I need. Class. I need someone who looks right at the big meetings. Epsom, Ascot.
Is this a job interview?
Arthur says you're good with numbers.
Well, that's relative. He's quite poor.
You keep the books in order.
They were chaotic.
But you're a liar.
So we got more micro expressions there, definitely in her lips again when they come together. There, when they seal together, that's definitely a sign of nervousness. I mean, I don't know if it would mean this, but it would kind of give an impression if somebody's trying to zip their mouth together that maybe they're trying to shut up.
No Catholic girl would enter a church and forget to make the sign of a cross.
You're very perceptive.
First you lied to me about that pub you used to work in. And now I find out you're a Protestant.
Do you care?
No.
And a moment there, the way he said no so decisively, I think that's very important to use when you're around women. You know, if a woman does ask you that question, do you care? You know, coming out very quickly with a no and making it very strong. And the way that he's done that and put the emphasis on the no, he's really cleared up that situation.
I like to fit in.
You pull a pint like someone who's thinking about it.
This isn't an interview, this is an interrogation.
Sit down.
And that's how, I know it's a film, you know, a lot of women might say no and leave, but that's how he commands that attention, the way he's gone sit down a little bit more sternly, and she has decided to sit down. And I 100% believe that that comes from the 4 things that he did earlier, the setups that make somebody want to please him. And I think by being so consistent throughout that when he does something like this, the woman does want to sit down. Now, I'm not saying, be a dick and shout at women and say sit down, because that kind of behavior should have been left out 100, 200 years ago, or should never have arrived, right? But sometimes that assertiveness done in a different manner, if I could come up with some examples, I'd give some, but it's very on the spot. But assertiveness given in that manner can sometimes work wonders.
Look, Grace.
And then straight away, the contrast, he's back to the hushed, kind of whispered, personal touch again. So the fact that he jumps between the two and adds emphasis, it kind of doesn't dilute when he goes extreme. So if somebody's nice all the time, when they're really nice, you probably wouldn't notice. Whereas a lot of women talk about how guys are a bad boy, how they never compliment them, so that when they do, it means 10 times more. And I think the fact that he goes through the two different tonalities, where he's aggressive and then he's nice, I think that balance is a big reason why people hang on his every word and think, oh, he's being nice to me now. Oh, in a way, it's kind of the way that abusive husbands or boyfriends do it, the way that they're really mean, and then the moment that they're nice, girls are all over them, which I do not condone. Let's make that a fact. But the way that he's doing it here is a less extreme version. There's no violence, but he's doing it via tonality.
You're washed up in a place you don't belong, for whatever reason. My good fortune.
And perhaps mine.
There's more micro expressions there from her lips. You can see them twitching, and Tommy's just don't move.
You know that most of what I do is illegal,
I'm not blind.
and yet you'd still be willing to work for me.
There's very, very strong eye contact there. The one thing that I would say is he should keep his mouth closed. But the eye contact is very strong. It's piercing. And the fact they're so close as well, he's done that on purpose. We saw that shuffle a second ago, and this arm was put on this chair, which is actually slightly defensive. It's actually blocking her being able to get to him. So personally, if I was the director, what I would have done is kept that arm down, or maybe put it around the back, the old cinema move, as you guys know. But held that eye contact. But certainly as he shuffled and he's got closer, that's worked wonders for the kind of dramatic scene that's coming next, if you would.
Are you offering me the job?
There were two slow head turns there as well, the way he turned slightly to the left and back to the right and back to eye contact. Never look down, as I always tell you guys, but the way he did that very slowly, that has, again, a dramatic effect.
Then I accept.
There's something else you should know. A very important detail about my reasons for employing you.
So what we got here is a couple of things. We had the dramatic pause to begin with, just before he did it. So he was okay with the silence, which is a definite masculine move. And then what we've also got is the hand on the face, which so many people are afraid to do. Now, I'm not saying, grab somebody by the face, but your face is probably your most personal area, maybe apart from, genitals. But your face is probably the most exposed personal area. And if somebody puts their hand on your face, they're kind of taking ownership of you. And the fact that he's done that and grabbed her face and kind of pulled her in as he's gone to kiss her, that is ultimate dominance of an individual. And the way he still kept his hand there whilst holding eye contact as well. There's still, enormous dominance that he's employing there. The fact that he's kept his hand on her head or on her face shows that he's comfortable in doing that, which is just emphasizing the effect even more.
You disappoint me.
Do you resign?
No. My appetite for the work has only increased.
I think let's take this back a second here. This verbal exchange.
No.
Sorry, let me go back.
Do you resign?
So when she said there, "You disappoint me," instead of saying, a lot of guys might be like, "Oh, why? What did I do wrong? I'm sorry. Was it too much? Did I come on too soon?" The fact he just stops, thinks about it, gives it a pause and goes, "Do you resign?" He's basically saying there, if that's the ultimate end goal of my, if that's the consequence of my actions, then so be it. And that's a very alpha male move there. That level of mindset will get you a lot more women. The fact that, like I said, he's okay with it. If she is going to resign, he's like, well, that's what I wanted to do. I'm going to live by the sword, die by the sword. If she resigns, fair enough. And he's made that decision when he paused and thought about it. And the question that he's asked is, do you resign? And if she had said yes and walked out, then, that's the cards you were dealt. You have to get on with it. But the way he's dealt with that is fantastic. It's not very strictly body language, but it's an alpha male mindset. And more micro expressions from her there. There were about 6 or 7 there. Watch this. It was fantastic acting from her.
No. My appetite for the work has only increased.
Tomorrow I'll show you around.
And something that I've been telling you guys a few times, we've seen in a few of these exits so far, is you don't have to say goodbye or end with a funny line or a joke. Like, once you've got what you wanted or the situation is fizzled out, just get up and leave. It's fine. Like, he said something when he's leaving because it's business related or it's related to tomorrow. But look how much she's now questioning. Did she do something wrong? What happened? It's kind of the push and pull method that I spoke about in the first ever James Bond body language. And I think let's say he's kissed her, he's given her that attention, they've had that little moment, and then he stood up and said, okay, bye. Well, not physically, not verbally, he's not said, okay, bye, but physically in that scenario, it's okay, bye, I'm out. He's got what he wanted, he set that up, and he was pulling her in, then he pushes her away and leaves, and that's what makes Tommy Shelby so magnetic. Now let's go on to the next scene with the boys. So in this scene, this is the one when he rounds them all up downstairs. He has a chat with the boys.
But are they? I don't know.
Arthur, John, what are they?
I don't know. I'm telling you now, we got lost.
Oh, come
you
on.
really need to do a map. I mean, right, boys, you're all here.
So straight away we can see how he's taken ownership of the conversation. This is a very wide stance, as we can see. The arms as wide as possible. He's dealing with a group of very masculine men here, criminals in fact. So he's led straight in with, okay boys, now that we're all here, he started it off, he's in the middle of the circle, he's commanding, his arms are wide. And let's play this on because there's so much that we can gather from this.
Today, this is my fucking wedding day.
Yeah, and you said there'd be no bloody uniforms.
The way that he's just butted in there as well, like his brothers decided to butt in, and then he's butted in again at the end to regain control of that scenario because he had it taken from him for a couple of seconds. And as we can see, there is the point here. He's pointing at him, he's pushing it slightly towards his personal space. He's making sure he knows that he's talking to him directly. This is an attempt to regain the room.
Nevertheless, John.
See the way that he's repeated it twice, used his name, John. That's a very dominant move. It's very headmaster or teacher and student, like I said in the previous clip.
Despite the bad blood, I'll have none of it on my carpet. Now, for Grace's sake, nothing will go wrong.
So usually, guys, I would say don't look around the room, be focused. But because he's talking to so many people, he's using his eye contact to look at each individual one by one to make sure that he has the attention and control of the room.
Those bastards.
And emphasis on words like bastards there, and the way that he's pointing aggressively, it makes him the focal point, and it's easy to gather the attention of the people in the room when you're doing things like this.
Out there on our family, and if you fuckers do.
And notice as well, guys, he's not shouting and screaming. Now, I know that the microphone is probably just slightly above his head, so it's easy to do. But the fact that he's talking in a pretty normal, reasonable tone means that, you know, you get a lot of people who talk quickly and try and talk loudly to get people's attention. But then you have that one individual who talks slowly and talks in a very modest tone because they know that people will listen to them regardless. You know, it could be a busy, crowded room. People will still stop and listen. And people like that they're so commanding.
Do anything.
See how he's pointing again, guys? I told you there was loads in this video. He's pointing at everybody individually and then using the expression of anything, you know, driving that home. Because it kind of belittles people. It takes control of them.
Bannister, your kin, your cousins, your horses, your fucking kids. You do anything to what?
What about Snot?
So he's been interrupted again. Watch how he deals with this.
Huh?
Yeah, they're women of sports, I'll say that.
No.
Look, he marches over to them individually. He drives the finger right into his personal space. Look how close that is. He looks him straight in the eye because he knows he has to make a spectacle of this. And then watch what he does next.
No cocaine. No cocaine. No sports. No telling fortunes. No racing.
So he goes around everybody individually to regain control, points at everybody, makes a case of everybody's flaws, and then starts moving his way around the group.
No fucking sucking petrol.
And that's another, I know it's his family member, it's his little brother, but he's got the eye contact, he's got a hand on the face, like I said earlier, the ultimate dominant move. And he's mere steps, maybe one single step from his brother here. So it's very, very dominant. What he's done is he's gone around the room individually to all the potential troublemakers and he's regained control. Almost like the heads of a pride of lions or something, gone around them all individually. I think when a dog has puppies, the mum or the dad will do this. They'll go around each of the troublemaking puppies and they might bark, they might push them out of the way, you know, they might act aggressive towards them to regain control.
Out of their fucking cars. And you, Charlie. Stop spinning yarns about me, eh?
Oh,
See, he's gone round to someone else, finger in the face. He's gone round each individual.
just trying to sell you to them, Tom.
But the main thing is, you bunch of fuck.
We can see again these wide open expressions. If you're talking to a large group, you need to make yourself look bigger. There's no other way to do it. The fact that, and I showed you this on the boy's body language with Butcher, the fact that he was moving around the circle, stood in the middle, talking to everybody individually, poking fingers in faces, it's the only way to do it, guys. Otherwise, if you've got, if you're in a meeting, a business scenario, you probably couldn't do this. But walking around the group, making yourself bigger, taking up more space, patrolling as such to say, this is my area, this is a fantastic move, because it does kind of give that alpha male ape kind of appearance where you're strutting left, right, back and forward at a slow pace with wide open arms, making these, let's say, expansive gestures where you're looking bigger. People will look at that and think, okay, he's taking control here, he's the focal point.
Because despite the provocation from the cavalry, no fighting.
I think the height of the gestures is important too. There's something called the truth plane. Mark Bowden, who I want to get on the podcast, invented this. If you're making gestures up in this sort of zone, it's too expressive, it's too over the top. It's a lot of, you see a Karen out on the street and she's stressed. She's making gestures up here, waving her arms around. If you make them around about this area, around about the waist, let's say here, this is the truth plane, where people can really trust you. It's something to do with all the vital organs being in here. Now, anything below this is seen as, kind of nervousness and distrust, where you could be hiding a weapon, concealing a weapon down here behind your back, whatever. Or if you're protecting your penis with both your hands, where people stand in that posture, that's also seen as submissive. I feel like I've drawn a title belt here, or a Marvel character. But yeah, all these gestures being below this sort of area can be seen as nervousness, because you don't want to make a scene. You don't want to cast a bigger shadow or shape than you already are. But all of his gestures are kind of in this middle zone where it's a good balance of assertiveness, excitement, aggression, truth. Like everything's in this middle zone, and it's quite a neutral zone.
No fighting.
Again, another hit to the face. You know, he's touching, he's pointing, he's marching over to people, he's gaining control. It's like a dad with a group of kids.
No fucking fighting. No fighting.
Especially here, we can see... Let's go back a little bit more. Okay, so what we've got here is a classic pointing in his face, showing that kind of dominance. What he does is he looks down, he actually tilts his head down, looks down to the floor, raises his palms, which is a submissive move. That's what you would do in the animal kingdom if you didn't want to get hurt. So that perfectly there is a scenario of the alpha male and the beta male. Just in this scenario, because I actually believe that both of these guys are alpha males, but in their own scenarios. You know, in this case, Arthur knows who's boss.
No fighting. No fucking fighting! Good. Get the fucking...
And then for comedy purposes at the end, you know, we have that part. But that's the two scenes, guys. I hope you learned something different. There was a lot. They were tough. They were tough to analyze because they weren't typical body language videos. There was a lot to look at. They're not, let's say, the normal videos that I've gone through before. But the fact that there's one with a woman and then a group of men, you know, this is the kind of scenarios that us as men in the modern era are going to be in. We're going to be with a group of lads and then we might be going on a date with a woman. And I think having these two scenarios side by side for me to analyze, for you guys to learn from, is very, very interesting. And thank you for tuning in again, guys. Really appreciate it. The last time I did a body language analysis video with Tommy Shelby, it was currently sitting at 17,000 views and it's getting 2,000 views every single day. So, you know, it's incredible. If this one does the same, then thank you so, so much. If you haven't seen the first one, I'll link to it at the end. And thanks for tuning in as usual, guys, and I'll speak to you all soon.